Hi, I am Marveline Picaro and I am the third reporter. Today, I am going to continue reporting the topic found in Chapter 9. To increase motivation, goal setting should be used. So, goal setting is the process of determining specific levels of performance for individuals to achieve. So, meaning, ang goal setting mao ang process of identifying something na gusto nimo ma-accomplish and establishing a measurable goals. Without goals, it can be difficult to determine how to get a certain job, promotion, or other milestone you want to achieve. So, when you decide on a financial change to save more money and then set a certain amount to save each month, this is an example of goal setting. Diba, gusto niyo nga mag-save og more money and then nag-set ka og certain amount og pila imong gusto nga ma-save each month. So, with goal setting, each employee is given a goal such as increasing attendance, selling more products, or reducing the number of grammar errors in reports. The first goal setting study that caught the interest of industrial psychologists was conducted by Latham and Balds. But the co-developers of goal setting theory is Latham and Locke. They published a theory of goal setting and task performance now, formally introducing now as the goal setting theory. Latham and Balds found that truck drivers who were assigned the goal of increasing the weight of their truckloads made modification to their trucks so that they could better estimate truck weight before driving to the weighing station. So, although this is the most significant study, goal setting has been shown to be effective in a wide variety of situations. For goal setting to be most successful, the goals themselves should possess certain qualities represented by the acronym SMART. So we are already familiar about the SMART goals. Money ang specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. So now I am going to discuss what these SMART goals all about. So first, let us know first what is specific. So as specific, properly set goals are concrete and specific. So in order for a goal to be effective, it needs to be specific. A goal such as, I will produce as many as I can, will not be as effective as I will print 5,000 pages in the next hour. The more specific the goal, the greater the productivity. The problem with such a goal, like for example, he will do push-ups as many as he can, means that as many as he did the last time, as many as he can before he begins to sweat. The problem with this goal is its ambiguity and the lack of specific guidelines. Too broad or general ra kayo atong goal, which is kung more specific, highest ang possibility nga ma-achieve because you set a clear and specific guidelines. The more narrow your goal, the more you understand the steps necessary to achieve it. However, though setting specific goals makes sense, it is not always easy to do. So Microsoft found that nearly 25% of the goals set by the employees as part of their performance plans were not specific. So the result of focus groups investigating this lack of specificity found that employees believe that with the constantly changing environment, it was difficult to set specific goals because the goal would need constant adjustment. So, ingon ang taga Microsoft, diha daw 25% sa ilahang goals na deserve sa ilahang employees nga dili specific. They found out that employees believe that with a constantly changing environment, a picky daw or gisodog set a specific goal. So, wala tong gitawag sa saying that the only constant in this world is change. So, bisan pa og nakagiset og mga specific goals, so wala madtakabaw sa dagan sa panahon. So, kung magkaset kag specific goals, so in a constant ang environment kay a constantly changing pod, So ang imong goals dapat dili siya permanente because of the constantly changing environment. However, dili reason dili ta set og specific goals tungod sa constantly changing environment. Dili na siya maoy maka-push nato to not set a specific goals. The second one is measurable. Specificity is a solid part, but it's missing something important: numbers. So goals should be measurable so that there is tangible evidence that proves the goal has been accomplished or completed. So properly set goals are measurable. So in the Microsoft study mentioned in the previous paragraph, diba, only 40% of the goals set by the employees were measurable. So ang pangutana, nga nung importante man na natay measurable manong kailangan man immersion nato. So in order for us nga makahibaw ta ato ang set na specific goals sa achieve na nato, like kahit og ana sa magama ka og mga activities as a student, ibang mag-set ka og imong goals is to humno nimo ang imong mga activities. So ang imong measure is karong adlaw humno nimo dapat makahuman ka og mga 4 activities dapat mahuman. So, mao to yung humunod, nakaset na kag specific goals as well as na kay measurement kung kanus-ani mo siya kutog humunod. The next one is attainable or achievable. So, setting goals you can reasonably accomplish within a certain time frame will help you motivated and focused. So, properly set goals are high but attainable. So, if an employer regularly prints 5,000 pages an hour and sets a goal of 4,000 pages, performance is certainly not going to increase. So, conversely, if the goal becomes 20,000 pages, it will also not be effective because the employee will quickly realize that he cannot meet the goal and will quit trying. Setting higher goals generally leads to better performance than thus setting lower goals. So the level of goal difficulty will most affect performance when employees are committed to reaching a goal. So example is kanang ang police chief sets a high goal for police officer to write traffic citation. The police officer will not increase the traffic citation unless committed siya sa iyang goal. And if he believes he can accomplish the goal, agrees that the goal is worthwhile and will be rewarded for achieving the goal, his committed to achieve the goal is likely to be high. Interestingly, setting goals that are too difficult to be accomplished can result not only in decreased performance but in an increase in an unethical behavior as well. So, if we are going to set a goal, so atong bana-banaon if that certain goal is attainable kay palahalara ta din later on, dili na ito ma-accomplish ato ang goal, it may result nga dili na ito musabong set into another because of failure. Goals should be realistic, not too high nga imposible na sad kaayo ma-achieve. R for relevant. So, properly set goals are also relevant. So when setting goals for yourself, consider whether or not they are relevant. So setting a goal about increasing public speaking skills will not be as motivating to a person working in a landfill as it would be to a police officer who often testifies in court. So, a landfill is a final control measure of waste disposal. So landfill is not relevant to a public speaking as the purpose of public speaking is to inform, persuade, and entertain audience. If we say relevant, see to it nga at muhang goal nga gusto buhaton or ma-achieve is na connection like public speaking, and then lawyer said karibana connection because as a lawyer imuha dyan ang work nga to testify sa court, diba? So naa dyan ang public speaking, imuhang goal is to stage fright as a lawyer. So na connection na relevant ang duha. T for the time bound. So good goals don't stretch into infinity. They have a deadline. So the final component of smart goals is that they need to be time bound. Goals work best when there is a time frame for their completion. For example, a goal to clean one's office would be more motivating if the goal included a date by which the office would be cleaned. Through the time frame, aside from motivate ta mo work, makatabang sad ang time frame para ma-aware ta every time. If there is no time frame or a deadline, the goal is unlikely to produce a favorable outcome. So, employee participation. It is a process whereby employees are involved in decision-making processes rather than simply acting on orders. So, until fairly recently, it was generally thought that a goal would lead to the greatest increase in productivity if it was set at least in part by the employee. That is, although performance would increase if the supervisor set the employee's goal, it would increase even more if the employee participated. However, several meta-analyses have indicated that participating in goal setting does not increase performance. The second meta-analysis is that employee participation in goal setting increases the commitment to reaching a goal. So, in a company, dili siya matawag nga whole without the employee. Each body of the company has its goal as well as the employee. So, sa atong nadungugan niya na duha ka meta-analysis. The first one is participating in goal setting does not increase performance. The second one is employee participation in goal setting increases the commitment to reaching a goal. But it's up to the employee if what's best for her or him. Kay nay mga uban, di ba, nga mas dedicated sila to work if they have a goal setting. However, nasa'y uban nga maybe due to some failures na ilhang na-encounter, maunang for them, goal setting does not increase performance. But, this is just a meta-analysis. So, dili ta makaingon nga tanan kay sadi lang siya. So, it can be employees participated in goal setting, goal commitment may be higher, or for them, employees participated in goal setting, goal commitment may be lower. To increase the effectiveness of goal setting, feedback should be provided to employees on their progress in reaching the goals. So, in the goal setting theory of motivation by Edwin Locke, he states that specific and challenging goals, along with appropriate feedback, contribute to higher and better task performance. So, mas satisfying man jud sa feeling, diba, to receive some positive feedback, especially gikan sa imong mga superiors. Also, through feedback, makaibaw tawag sa tadapit nagkuwang, tadapit need na to improve to be better. Feedback can include verbally telling employees how they are doing, placing a chart on a wall, or using non-verbal communication such as smiles, glares, and pats on the back. Feedback best increases performance when it is a positive and informational rather than negative and controlling. Here are some tips for providing effective feedback. So, identify the employee's behavior and focus on it rather than on the employee's personality. If we say personality, it is taken to be what we are, how we individuals tend to behave, think, and feel. So, like for example, being honest, being adventurous and fearless, being helpful, and many more. So, while behavior is absolutely everything what we do, such being aggressive, confident, and active. So, we need to focus on employees' behavior on the employee's personality, because ang personality sa usa ka tawo cannot be changed while ang behavior can be changed. So, example, if an employee is often late for work, a superior might say, "In the past 2 weeks, you have been late 5 times," rather than, "We are having a problem with your lack of responsibility and commitment to your job." It's a formal way, mga godpad, to point out his behavior than his personality. Kaya mingon kog, "In the past 2 weeks, you have been late about 5 times, di ba, mas ma-encourage siya to change his behavior, to do better. Second is, explain how the behavior is impacting others. For example, when you arrive to work 10 minutes late, customers become angry because there is no one to help them with their purchases. When other employees cover the register for you, it causes them to get behind on their work, resulting in their missing part of their lunch break or being forced to work overtime. So when you explain like this, aside from makasabot siya sa imong gustong ipaabot, formal pud siya, di ba? Even if naa siya problem sa work, and for you as a supervisor or unsa pa imong rank, you should explain it in a better way to avoid negative manner from the employees in the future. We should explain it that way kaysa moingon ka nga babaya ka, imbis makapahuway sila dit na lang or maka-off og sayo delete na lang kay kuwang sa tao. Diba mas makaibo siya kung ikaw as employee nga Mr. Yan o yung ana murag mas na chance nga mas magtanim ka ng galit sa imuhang supervisor. Miss kay imong goal is para makasabot siya sa iyahang mali, di ba? Wala na ang imuhang gustong ipaabot tungod sa imuhang feedback or sa imuhang way nga pag deliver sa feedback. The third one is, ask the employee for suggestion on how the behavior can be changed. If the employee has none to offer, the supervisor can provide some. The last one is, after arriving at a solution, the supervisor and the employee should then set a specific goal. So for example, they could agree that the employee will be on time every day for next week. And then, after an agreed upon time, the supervisor and the employee should meet to see if the goal has been met and to set new goals. Self-regulation theory. So it is an interesting extension, and goal setting and feedback is the concept of self-regulation. So in the previous section, we discussed how it is important to get feedback on goal attainment. Though this feedback often comes from others, the idea behind self-regulation theory is that employees monitor their own progress toward attaining goals and then make the necessary adjustment. That is, they self-regulate. So if we say self-regulation, it is the ability to monitor and manage your energy, states, emotion, thoughts, and behaviors in ways that are acceptable and produce positive results. Self-regulation is you set a rule on how you will achieve it, like example. Sa example, makita nato asa siya dapat mo-adjust para ma-achieve iyahang goal and in order for her to gain a positive outcome later on. An essential strategy for motivating employees is to provide an incentive for employees to accomplish the goals set by an organization. So, the basis for these incentive systems are operant conditioning principles, which states that employees will engage in behaviors for which they are rewarded and avoid behaviors for which they are punished. If employees are rewarded for not making errors, they are more likely to produce high-quality work, so positive reinforcer. If employees are rewarded for the amount of work done, they will place less emphasis on quality and try to increase their quantity. So, ang ilahang incentives is pinaagi sa operant conditioning. If we say operant conditioning, it is an association that made between a behavior and a consequence. For negative, money ang punishment, and for the positive behavior, mao ang reward. Diba, ang premise sa operant conditioning is actions that are followed by reinforcement or the positive will be strengthened and more likely to occur again in the future. For example, if you tell a funny story in class and everyone laughs, you will probably be more likely to tell that story again in the future. But finally, if employees are not rewarded for any behavior, they will search for behaviors that will be rewarded. If ikaw as an employee, kalingaw ka o receive of incentives or reward, di ba, most likely mas motivated na ka nga mo lihok or mo gama sa imong work. Unless if ang imong work is not enough or for you, it serve as a negative behavior, so mas mangita jud ka og paagi or mas i-pursue pa ni imong self to receive a reward or a positive reinforcer. There are 6 factors in determining the effectiveness of incentive programs. So, timing of the incentive, contingency of the consequences, the type of incentive use of individual-based versus group-based incentives, use of positive incentives or rewards versus negative incentives, and the fairness of the reward system. Timing of the incentive. Research indicates that the reinforcer of a punisher is most effective if it occurs soon after a performance of behavior. Unfortunately, if the timing of the incentive is too long, the effectiveness of the incentive to improve performance will be hindered. Example, ikaw as an employee sa usa ka restaurant performs many behaviors in serving a customer. Usahay na tip nga mabilin from the customer after the meal, which you as an employee mo na imong feedback for showing a good performance. However, if ang tip kay gamay, ikaw as usa ka empleyado wala ka kaybaw, asa ka dapit nagkuwang sa imuhang service. Likewise, if the tip is large, wala sad kay 100% sure if unsa nga behavior ang giganahan sa customer nimo. The timing of the consequence by itself may not be enough. Though the word incentive is a positive reinforcer, the effectiveness of the incentive to improve his or her performance will be hindered. Contingency of consequences. If it is not possible to immediately reward or punish a behavior, it should at least be made clear that the employee understands the behaviors that brought reward or punishment. Furthermore, when tips are pooled at restaurants so that each employee gets a share of all tips received, an individual employee's rewards are not as contingent on his own behavior as when tips are not pooled. Mas ganahan jud ang employee makadawat og incentives or tip if ang tip direct dayon nimo. Whereas, kung tagaan ka og tip as a whole, kanang kinikas ka sa mga empleyado, na mas better or mas satisfying sa feeling ang tip nga imong nadawat serves as a reward sa imong self might be due to being a hardworking employee. The point of this example is that reward and punishment must be made contingent upon performance, and this contingency of consequence must be clear to employees if we want them to be motivated. Contingency means panghitabo nga unpredictable. Duhay value nga pwede ikahatag if you receive a reward or a punishment but then wala ka kahibaw asa nga aspect sa imong behavior ang mean. If the reward or punishment cannot be administered immediately, the employee must be told the purpose of the consequence so that the link between behavior and outcome is clear.
Hello, good day everyone. I am Achievable and today I will discuss some topics found in Chapter 9, the types of incentives used until the stock options. So now let's start by defining what is an incentive program. So an incentive program is the structured use of rewards and recognition in order to motivate someone, in order to show the best of its performance. So I know that all of us are common with this word. And while we are growing up, we experience these kinds of incentive from our parents. For example, when we do good at school or when we have high scores during exams, our parents give us reward such as foods or money, and they also show recognition by telling us good job or we are very good at our exam. So those are examples of incentives. An interesting method in providing incentives that meets the individual needs of the employees stems from the Premack principle. The Premack principle states that a supervisor can reinforce its employees by using something that on the surface does not appear to be a reinforcer. The best way to explain this is by constructing a reinforcement hierarchy. In this way, the employee will list down all his preferences for a variety of reinforcers. So we have here an example from our hypothetical employee. So this is an example of a reinforcement hierarchy from our hypothetical employee. So as we can see, our hypothetical employee most desire money and time off from work, and least desires typesetting and cleaning of press. So we can say that our employee can do better at his job at cleaning his press if we give him money each time he completes the task, but that would be so expensive. Thus, according to the Premack principle, we can get our employee clean his press properly by allowing him to do one of the activities he considered more enjoyable than cleaning his press. So according to the hierarchy, our employee considered throwing oily rags more enjoyable. So all we need to do for our reward is to let him dispose the rug, maybe because it is more enjoyable for our hypothetical employee because he have a time, or he can take a short break while walking towards the disposal area. So all we need to do is to let our employee do one of the activities he likes more. I can agree with this, and I think that my parents is using the Premack principle when I was studying in my elementary years. I remember that I really have hard time in studying math. Rather than telling me to stop studying, my parents make me choose to study English or to study math. So I choose the easier one, the one that I enjoy more than math. So I choose to study English. So in that way, I get my reward. I get to answer the subject that I felt it is easier compared to math. The first incentives that we will discuss is the financial incentive. So a financial incentive or a financial reward is a monetary reward. In addition to their regular compensation, a monetary reward is given to an employee who shows a good performance in work or in an organization. This is aligned with the organizational goals. As an employee that helps an organization achieve its goal, an incentive often follows. So this financial reward is usually extrinsic. Extrinsic motivation is based on tangible reward, such as pay raises, bonuses, and paid time off. Let's take a look at an example. Bailey Jones worked as a salesperson for a new car dealership called Star Motors. The managers at Star Motors have determined that their newest car, the V300, is not selling well. The managers meet with Bailey and the rest of the sales team to announce that they would pay each salesperson an additional $50 for each new V300 he or she sold. This is a perfect example of a financial reward that is extrinsic. Bailey is going to receive an additional $50 for each new V300 he sells, while helping the company meets its sale goals. This is the perfect example of a financial reward, because Bailey would be given a monetary reward based on Bailey's performance. If Bailey can sold a car, he can receive a monetary reward of an additional $50. And also, Bailey is helping the company reach its sales goal. Another incentive that we will discuss is the recognition. Rather than giving financial incentive, many organizations rewards employees' behavior through recognition. We have here an example. Most universities award faculty members the titles of Associate Professor and Professor to recognize years of service as well as quality of performance. And another example, United Airlines hold a special ceremony, each emblems for each year of service. So we also heard the term recognition, and I also heard of it in the call center industry. For example, if you wanted to go and apply for a higher position, your performance or the quality of your performance and the year of service will matter if you wanted to apply for that certain position. In some organization, recognition are done by peers. For example, choosing the People Choice Award or the Best Employee of the Month. So this informal recognition, or also called social recognition, can be a tremendous factor in employees' motivation. The social recognition consists of personal attention, signs of approval such as smiles and head nods, and expression of appreciation. Another incentive is travel. Many organizations provides their employees with the best performance, free travel, rather than giving a financial incentive. There are many benefits of incentive travel, but one of the most strongest benefits it has over cash incentives is that it provides a long-lasting memories, builds relationship, and broadens horizon that is very difficult to remove from a person. So these benefits go a long way in supporting the findings of research carried out by the Travel Society for Incentive Travel Excellence, which states that 99% of incentive travel programs are very effective in achieving important long-term objectives. So now, let's talk about individual versus group incentives. Now let's talk about individual incentive plan. Under individual incentive plan, individual employees is paid incentive on the basis of individual performance or output. The employers are liable to pay incentive to those employees who are producing more than the standard output. Individual incentive plans can be either time-based or production-based. There are 3 problems with the individual incentive plan. So the first one is the difficulty in measuring individuals' performance. So it is the problem of the organization or the company on how to determine if who is the best employee and who is the one that deserves the incentive. Number 2, it can foster competition among employees because it is a performance-based incentive. So the employees are competing with each other in order to be the best employee and to receive that incentive. And with that, it can break or have a tension with the relationship of the employees at work. And number 3, for the incentive plan to effectively motivate employees, it is essential that employees understand the incentive system. So in order for this incentive plan to be effective in motivating the employees to do better, one of the first thing to do is let the employees understand well the incentive system. So there are two main common individual incentive plan. The first one is pay for performance, or the EAR, earning at risk plan. So this pays the employees according to how much they individually produced. Simple pay for performance that we all know is the commission, or being paid for each unit sold, and piecework, being paid for each unit of something produced. The second individual incentive is the merit pay. Merit pay system base their incentives on performance appraisal score rather than on performance measures as sales and productivity. So unlike the first individual incentive plan, the pay for performance, so for example, the commission. So the more product you can produce, the more incentive you can have. But in a merit pay, it is based on the appraisal score, or it pay employee if the employees hit the target or perform their jobs effectively according to a measurable criteria over a predetermined period of time. Now let's talk about the group incentives plan. The idea behind the group-based or organization-based incentive plan is to get employees to participate in the success or failure of the organization. Rather than encouraging individual competition, these plans reward employees for reaching group goal. So unlike the individual incentive plan, one of its disadvantages is that it can cause tension or competition towards the employees. But the group incentive plan is not. It encourages the employees to work together in order to achieve the organization goal. But the problem with the group incentive plans are that they encourage social loafing and get complicated, that they become difficult to explain to the employees. In social psychology, social loafing is the phenomenon in which a person is exerting less effort in achieving goals when they are in group than when they are alone. This is one of the main reasons why groups are less productive than the combined performance of their members working individually. Because maybe when we are in the group, we depend on other person and we sit back because we know that other persons would do, and we will depend on that. We will not give our best because we know that even though we don't put much effort, many of the team members will help us and will do that part. Rather than when we do things alone, we know that no one will gonna help us, no one will gonna do this thing. So we exert much effort, or we exert our best in order to reach that goal. Now let's talk about profit sharing. Profit sharing was developed in the United States by Albert Gallatin way back in 1974. Profit sharing programs provide employees with a percentage of profits above a certain amount. For example, in addition to their base salary, employees might receive 50% of the profits a company makes above 6%. The profits to be shared can be paid directly to employees as a bonus or cash plans, or placed into the employee's retirement plan. Now let's talk about gain sharing. Gain sharing is used by about 11% of organizations. It is according to Mercer Consulting 2005. Gain sharing ties group-wide financial incentive to improvements or gains in organizational performance. Gain sharing is best described as a system of management in which an organization seeks higher level of performance through the involvement and participation of its people. As performance improves, employees share financially in the gain. Gain sharing programs consist of three important elements. The first one is a cooperative, participative management philosophy. The second one, incentive based on improvement. And the third one is a group-based bonus formula. A typical gain-sharing program works as follows. First, the company monitors performance measures over some period of time to derive a baseline. Then, productivity goals above the baseline are set, and the employees are told that they will receive bonuses for each period that the goal is reached. To make goal setting more effective, constant feedback is provided to employees on how current performance is in relation to the goal. At the end of each reporting period, bonuses are paid on the basis of how well the group did. Now let's talk about stock options. With stock options, the employees are given the opportunity to purchase stock in the future, typically at the market price on the day the options were granted. Usually, stock vests over a certain period of time and must be exercised within a maximum time frame. The idea is that as the company does well, the value of its stocks increases, as does the employee's profit. So as the stocks increases, the profit of the employees also increases. For example of stock options, suppose AT&T stock is selling for $55 per share on June 1, and the company gives employees the option of purchasing the stock for $55 per share anytime in the next 10 years. 10 years later, the stock is worth $75 per share, and the employee can purchase the stock for $55 per share option priced. So there will be $20 per share profit for the employees. However, if the stock had fallen from $55 to $45, the employee would not exercise his options to purchase the stock of $55 per share. So this is an example of stock profit. The employee was given by the company AT&T an option to buy its shares for the next 10 years. So the price would be $55 per share because it is the price at the time that the offer was made. And in the next 10 years, if the share is worth $75 per share, the employee can still buy the share at the option price, the $55 per share. So the employee will have $20 profit per share. However, if the share becomes lower than $55 per share, then the employees cannot exercise their option in buying the share. So thank you so much, everyone. So that is the end of my discussion, and I hope you learned from my discussion. Thank you so much.
Good day. I'm gonna continue the reporting. I am Shara Laguros, and now I'm gonna tackle about expectancy theory. So, what is expectancy theory? Expectancy theory is an influential theory of worker motivation that suggests that behavior is motivated by anticipated results of consequences. It was initially put forward by Victor Vroom at the Yale School of Management, wherein he proposed that a person decides to behave in a certain way based on the expected result of the chosen behavior. For example, people will be willing to work harder if they think that the extra effort will be rewarded. So, in essence, individuals make choices based on estimates of how well the expected results of a given behavior are going to match up with or eventually lead to the desired results. This process begins in childhood and continues throughout a person's life. So, expectancy theory has three components: expectancy, instrumentality, and valence. Expectancy. Expectancy is the perceived relationship between the amount of effort an employee puts in and the resulting outcome. Instrumentality is the extent to which the outcome of a worker's performance, if noticed, results in a particular consequence. And valence is the extent to which an employee values a particular consequence. So, to understand or predict an employee's level of motivation, these three components are used in the formula. Motivation is the product of expectancy, instrumentality, and valence. Thus, all possible outcomes of a behavior are determined. The valence of each is multiplied by the probability that it occurs at a particular performance level, and then the sum of these products is multiplied by the expectancy of an employee putting in the effort to attain the necessary level of performance. As can be seen from this formula, the higher the score of each component, the greater the employee's motivation. So, to expound this, let us examine each component in more detail. So, in terms of expectancy, if an employee believes that no matter how hard he works, he will never reach the necessary level of performance, then his motivation will probably be low. Wala, uy, bisag unsa akong buhaton. Dili jud ako ma-reach ni nga performance. So, ang employee dili siya ma-motivate nga buhatonon. Kay kabalo naman siya. I mean, nag-expect naman siya nga dili niya ma-reach nga level of performance. So, for instrumentality, the employee will be motivated only if his behavior results in some specific consequence. That is, if the employee works extra hours, he expects to be more rewarded. Or if he is inexcusably absent from work, he expects to be punished. Sige, ko, OT, mo OT kay, mo overtime kay, na may sweldo, so ganahan ka mo overtime. Kay, daghang overtime, daghang sweldo. Wherein, kung dili ka mo absent ka, mo absent ka ron. Siyempre, unsa may expect mo kung absent ka? Kung muawol ka, mapunish ka. Or kung mu-absent ka, wala ka sweldo ng adlaw. And the third component, valence. If an employee is rewarded, the reward must be something he values. If good performance is rewarded by an award, then the employee will be motivated only if he values awards. So, pwede ma-example na to ani kay kana siguro na assessment mahitabo every month, no? Sa kanang, for example, sa company. Si Shara ang pinaka daghang customer karon nga month. Ngani. So, naay rewards unya. Ang reward nga gihatag ni Shara kay kanang ma-value nila hala. Ang reward karon kay kuan na ba mug. Unya, ang mug, nakoy collection of mug ingon si Shara. So, valuable niya ng award. Ma-motivate ta po siya kay sa sunod nga month sa pud mug na daw pud ang i-award. So, okay na po siya, ma-motivate siya kay valuable ang mug para niya. It is important to understand that expectancy theory can run around if managers interpret it too simplistically. It entails more than just the assumption that people will work harder if they think the effort will be rewarded. The rewards need to be meaningful and take valence into account. Expectancy theory, when properly followed, can help managers understand how individuals are motivated to choose among various behavioral alternatives. To enhance the connection between performance and outcomes, managers should use systems that tie rewards very closely to performance. They can also use training to help employees improve their abilities and believe that added effort will, in fact, lead to better performance. Although expectancy theory is an interesting and useful method of predicting and increasing employee motivation, some researchers have criticized it. And the major criticism involves the components equation. So, ang equation, kay motivation is the product of expectancy, instrumentality, and valence. As it is now written, all of the components are multiplied. So, some researchers have suggested that perhaps the addition of some components would be more appropriate than their multiplication. This is because when the components are multiplied, a zero in any component results in a prediction of zero motivation, even when ratings in the other components are high. So, syempre, kaya motivation is product man, kung ang isa sa expectancy, instrumentality, or valence kay zero, automatic na nga ma-zero ang motivation dyan. Ma-zero na ang product because any number multiplied to zero is equal to zero. So, zero, kung zero ang product, zero ang motivation. Medyo okay po ang criticism. So, the second criticism involves the values assigned to each component. So, ang value sa expectancy, instrumentality, o valence. Research has indicated that even though valence and instrumentality can be reliably measured, the theory is most predictive when people behave rationally, which they often not do, and have an internal locus of control, which may not be always the case. Despite problems with the equation, however, the theory is still one of the most useful for predicting employee behavior. Rewards versus punishment. So we all know, familiar na kayo unsa ng rewards, unsa ng punishment. So, rather than rewarding desired behaviors, we can change employee performance by punishing undesired behaviors. So, no to rewarding desired behaviors, yes to punishing undesired behaviors. That is, instead of rewarding employees who do not miss work, we punish those who do. So, proponents of using punishment to change employee behavior argue that if applied properly, punishment not only reduces undesired behaviors in a particular employee, but also sets an example for other employees. So, imuhang workmate nga wala ni trabaho or naa siya gibuhat nga dili mao niya nakuhabaw-an ninyo nga gipunish siya. So, makuan na sa imuhang hunahuna nga okay, dili na nako buhaton kay kung buhaton na nako mao na yung punishment. However, opponents of punishment argue that punishment changes behavior only in the short run. It does not teach an employee proper behaviors and causes resentment. For punishment to be effective, an employee must understand why he is being punished and be shown alternative ways of behaving that will result in some type of desired reinforcement. The punishment must also fit the crime in that too severe punishment will cause resentment and too lenient punishment will not motivate a change in behavior. As one would imagine, punishment should usually be done in private rather than in front of other employees. This is true, no? Kay kung mapunish ka sa butang nga mo ni imong gibuhat, unya ang punishment nimo kay kani. So makuan siya nga, grabiha mas akong punishment, kamurag dili man kaayo, bugat ang akong nabuhat. Or kung bugat imong nabuhat, unya ang punishment nimo is dili kayo grabe. Okay, buhaton pa to na ako balik, uy, kay ingani raman di ay, sayo naman di ang punishment. So, magmatter jud siya. And for punishment usually be done in private rather than in front of other employees. So, I think, professionalism jud no, makita jud na to ani, professionals pa ya. So, it's better to do it in private. Kay, dili man sad, mas mubugat ang punishment anang employee kung imo na siyang like kasabaan i-punish nimo atubangan sa iyang mga kauban nga employees. So better do it in private na lang. Are rewards and resources given equitably? So another factor related to motivation and job satisfaction is the extent to which employees perceive that they are being treated fairly. The first theory on this topic is equity theory. So, equity theory is based on the premise that our levels of motivation and job satisfaction are related to how fairly we believe we are treated in comparison with others. If we believe we are treated unfairly, we attempt to change our beliefs or behaviors until the situation appears to be fair. So basically, it is a theory of motivation that suggests that employee motivation at work is driven largely by their sense of fairness. There are three components involved in this perception of fairness: inputs, outputs, and input-output ratio. So, inputs are those personal elements that we put into our jobs. Obvious elements are time, effort, education, and experience. Less obvious elements include distance driven to work. Outputs are those elements that we receive from our jobs. A list of obvious outputs includes pay, benefits, challenge, and responsibility. Less obvious benefits such as friends because, we can gain friends through work. And according to the theory, employees subconsciously list all their outputs and inputs and then compute an input-output ratio by dividing output value by input value. By itself, this ratio is not especially useful, but employees then compute it because They wanna compare it with their previous work experiences. If employees perceive that the ratio of inputs to outcome is not equitable with what of their peers, then they may become demotivated and dissatisfied with their job. When an employee's inputs are greater than his outputs, he may work less hard, become more selfish, or has lower job satisfaction. But when an employee's outputs are greater than his inputs, he is likely to be persuaded by his underpaid peers. He works harder and he becomes more team-oriented. Are other employees motivated? So, employees observe the levels of motivation and satisfaction of other employees and then model those levels. Thus, if an organization's older employees work hard and talk positively about their jobs and their employer, new employees will model this behavior and be both productive and satisfied. The reverse is also true. If veteran employees work slowly and complain about their jobs, so too will new employees. So no, kung bago ka na nga company, and then nabantayan mo sa mga daan na like mga seniors mo, kapuya, hanap po ng trabaho. Kapuya, hanap po ng Teka, mga negative nga may paingon. So makakuha ng po ko. Lo, kapuya, dahil po mo trabaho ani, oy. Kapuya, manday ani. So, na-influensyahan ka. So, integration of motivation theories. As shown in the figure, people come to a job with a predisposition toward motivation. That is, some people, such as those with high self-esteem, are generally more motivated than others. So, let's review what we have learned in this chapter. So, from the discrepancy and needs theories, we will be motivated in our jobs if the job itself and the organization meet our expectations and values and satisfies our needs. So, kung wala na meet ang imo expectation sa low imong motivation. So, from goal-setting theory, we will find that employees who have understand and agree to goals will be more motivated than those without goals or with unclear goals. So, from expectancy theory and goal-setting theory, we know that the goals must be challenging but reasonable. From operant learning and expectancy theories, it is clear that extrinsically motivated people will be more motivated if behavior results in a reward. From these same two theories plus discrepancy theory, the needs theories, and the Premack principle, we know that the rewards must have value to the employees to be motivating because different people value different rewards. Care must be taken to ensure that a variety of rewards are available. So, from equity theory, we know that rewards that are valued will be motivating only if they are given in an equitable way. As discussed previously in this chapter, perceptions of equity are as important as the reality of equity. So for social learning theory, it tells us that if other employees are motivated, kung motivated ang uban, there is an increased probability that we will model their behavior and be motivated. The results of these factors are summed to indicate an employee's current level of motivation. As conditions change, so will the motivation level. Ethics of motivation strategies. As you read this chapter, organizations come up with creative ways to try to motivate employees to work harder, work safer, or to cut costs. But the question is, should there be any limits on the type of motivator that is used? Or is it okay to use any motivational strategy just as long as it has the desired results? So here is an example situation. In 2001, a Hooters chain in Panama City Beach, Florida, came up with the idea of having a beer selling contest to motivate its servers to sell as much beer as possible in the month of April. The top-selling waitress from each Hooters in the area had her name entered into a drawing. The waitress whose name was drawn would win the prize. Based on what the managers at each Hooters told their staff, the competing waitresses thought they would be winning a new Toyota automobile. The competition was a success. Most of the Hooters in the area seemed to have increased their sales of beer. Jody Berry was the winning waitress. On the day she was told she was the winner, she was blindfolded and led to the restaurant parking lot. However, instead of receiving a new Toyota car, she was presented with a Star Wars toy Yoda doll. Inside the restaurant, the manager and the other staffs were laughing. Miss Berry didn't think it was so funny. She worked hard to win this contest. Her motivation level was high because of the thought of winning a Toyota, not a toy Yoda. So, she sued Gulf Coast Wings Incorporated, owners of the restaurant, alleging breach of contract and fraudulent misrepresentation. She was seeking as compensation the cost of a new Toyota car. The case was settled out of court for an undisclosed amount. So, employees are the most valuable asset any company has. They are responsible for undertaking daily activities which assist organizations to achieve their goals. So, in order to enable workers to give the best, employers need to identify means of motivating their workers. While motivation is critical, organizations should be careful to avoid negative implications associated with various forms of motivation. The actions toward Miss Berry were unethical. It was unethical for the hotel to promise the waitress a Toyota car, then instead give her a Star Wars toy Yoda doll. The waitress put in extra effort since she wanted to get a car. The hotel had not informed her that eventually they will offer a toy. Furthermore, presenting a toy to the waitress indicated that the hotel did not value her services. The move showed that the waitress was simply a means to an end for the hotel. It was hence unethical for Hooters to take for granted the services of the waitress.